Is there one that has more value to you or is more important to you in this level of when trying to keep your accounts in the positive?
Looking and framing in terms of root, realign, and rise,
Yeah.
which for me, the real root, my core being
Yeah.
comes from my aspirations, comes from dreams.
Mm,
And I think when we get really in touch with our aspirations, that it motivates everything from there. Bold. I think we need to be bold when we're aspiring for things. But I would say
mm,
that's the number one aspect. When I first begrudgingly, people said you should write a book about this because your story is compelling. It'll inspire people. And I said, no, I don't want to write a book because I didn't want the responsibility of having a book out there, that I might have to promote it and defend it or whatever. And I've been a lifelong writer and I've written other books, but it was this that it was kind of really caused me to pause. And so I came up with 6 emotional bank accounts and I sent them off to my mom. And I said, I think this is why I survived. I think this is
mm.
the reason. And she said, yeah, this is great, but you're missing one. The classic, my mom was always pushing me to do better.
Yeah.
And she said, you're missing dreams.
Mm.
And I thought that dreams was going to go last. I realized that dreams are not just first, they are central to everything.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Root, Reline, and Rise podcast. Today, I have JC Chamberlain. He's an entrepreneur, he's an endurance athlete, speaker, and a resilience advocate whose work bridges in leadership, emotional well being, and personal transformation. He's a 5-time national champion in cycling and rowing. JC has spent decades operating at elite levels of performance, competing over 1,100 cycle races, earning more than 250 podium finishes, and he's ridden over 429,000 miles across North America and Europe. Whew. Beyond athletics, he has managed $1 billion commercial estate portfolios, helped lead a global nonprofit serving students in more than 40 countries, and he's co-founded multiple companies focused on innovation, health, and human development. But JC's perspective on resilience became deeply personal after he survived a nearly fatal cycling accident when he was struck broadside by an SUV while he was riding his bicycle. Rather than allowing crisis to define him, though, he rebuilt through what he now calls the emotional wealth, which is the framework that is centered on resilience, emotional capacity, relationships, habits, and sustainable leadership. And today, through his work, Antidote, and his broader work, JC helps people strengthen their emotional resilience, navigate adversity, and build lives capable of sustaining both success and hardship. JC, thank you so much for being on the show. You have an amazing story of resilience, and I am just so happy to have you to share it with the audience. I think that when we speak so much of resilience, when things happen and we fall off our bike per se, it's difficult to get back up on that and take another ride. And so, metaphorically, I think here we are in real life. It's great to share the story, to know that as you and I spoke even before in my health journey, it's inspiring to hear people go to the other side and to get back on that bike again and go for more rides. So I thought we could talk about in the start of how you spent decades competing at those elite levels, though, in cycling and rowing. Can you tell me what endurance sports taught you early on about pressure, suffering, and all the resilience?
Absolutely. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's really a delight. And I'm enjoying this already. So, um, I was a sick child and it didn't look good for me to thrive and be an athlete as a child. I had heart problems. I had rheumatic fever as a 4-year-old, and
Mm,
doctors said you'll never be able to do sports. And since I didn't have any other perspective at that time, I turned my attention to the violin. I loved the violin.
mm,
I loved listening to it. I
mhm.
managed to get my parents to rent me a violin at age 7, and I literally was on my knees in front of the record player playing
Mm.
away. I'm sure I sounded awful, but I played 3 hours a day, and
Yeah.
I just loved it, and I wanted to throw myself into something.
Mm,
And, eventually I got pretty good at it. And I worked my way all the way up to the first chair in the first violin section. And it was a big milestone for me to play, in essentially symphony orchestras as a teenager. And so I had something that became an anchor for me. And I think that that's what I learned at an early age, is that I had a capacity to reframe the situation that I was in and look at the assets that came naturally in that situation and transform them into a great opportunity. And that allowed me to move through these difficult passages that were intended for me. And I think that's where I formed my worldview that success never comes out of our comfort zone. Success always comes from setbacks. And if we define that as a failure or something unpleasant or embarrassing, it's a setback. And the seeds of your greatness are only in setback.
Boy, do I love that. Yeah.
We don't find greatness any other way. And so I encourage young entrepreneurs, and I counsel a lot of young entrepreneurs. I have a set of criteria that I look for, but most importantly, I look for a highly motivated CEO. I look for an idea that I think scales to a mass market and that does good. Because I don't have forever, I want to make a difference. And so I say no to a lot of things, but I think that's helped my worldview has been formed by my early childhood experience and learning that I could reframe a bad thing into a really good thing.
I love that, because in reality, it's those hard moments that really do stretch us and grow us. Otherwise, I think unless we've sat uncomfortable, we don't know what discomfort is enough to appreciate the other side. What do you think most people misunderstand, though, about resilience?
I think fundamentally, we think that resilience is just natural,
Yeah.
right? That somehow everybody gets their dose. And I think it's something that is organic, that we deliberately build. And I have so many life examples, that I could share that show me that I had to be inside the crucible in order to bubble up and reach out and become a new version of me. So I think that's resilience comes from challenge. It doesn't come from comfort.
Yeah. I think that each mile that you ride, that in itself that's another story of that stretch. That's another piece of learning that resilience in itself. You've rid hundreds of thousands of miles over how many decades now?
Since 1970.
That's a lot.
Yes, I'm 70.
What does
But that's okay. I always imagine what 70 might be like, and I never imagined that it would be like this. I have this profound sense of poise and peace about where I am, and I thought I would be really upset and disturbed about being 7 decades old when I was younger, and now I look back on that and I say, wow, uh, mistakes are really a high price to pay for wisdom,
Mm,
but it's the only
yeah.
way. It's the
Yeah.
only way.
Before your accident, were there signs or even mistakes in your life that you knew you needed to recalibrate from? Or did that crash force a bit more of awareness? Was it before or was it after?
Uh, I think that was a big interrupt. I was, I thought I was minding my own business, training for a big race. I was only riding with one other guy, and I had been looking for an opportunity to ride with him. We'd ridden 50 miles in the morning, and then we had a little bite to eat, and the two of us decided to go out and ride 50 more. And we were about 12 miles into that ride when a guy ran a stop sign on the gas to avoid a truck that was behind us. And so he was coming through the intersection on the gas, looking only at the truck. And when he turned his attention back to the intersection, I was already on the hood of his car.
Oh my gosh.
And I flew 100 feet and landed on my face in the gravel. And that was when the miracles started to unfold. So I would say that, that truly is the crucible that I had to go through. In the ambulance, they got me an ambulance. Both of them were MDs. The guy that hit me is an ER doc, and the guy that I was riding with is the chief of anesthesiology at the trauma center where they took me. So um, it was a custom fit accident just
Yeah.
just for me. And so in the ambulance, I was in and out of shock, and I managed to say my girlfriend's phone number to the guy that I was riding with. He had jumped into the ambulance, and then I checked out. And I did not need a body to have this interaction with the higher power. It was just being present. And there was no need for introductions. It was like we'd known each other forever. And I said in my non-physical way, why me? Why now? Why this? What do you want from me?
Yeah.
And God said, there was a fatal accident in your future that only I can see. And because I'm not done with you, I chose this accident because it is survivable if you choose, but it will change the course of your life so that that fatal accident is no longer in your future.
That actually leads to my next question. What changed most in how you saw life after that experience?
Yeah. I mean, it was so 90 minutes later, I woke up in an ER,
Yeah.
and my girlfriend was there feeding me water with a sponge. And it was a long haul to get out of this. I was completely paralyzed on my left side. And the physicians came to my bedside and said, if you work hard, you probably can learn to walk, but you never should hope to ride again.
Wow.
And I said, well, I know things look pretty bad, but you don't know who you're saying that to. I will find a way to ride. I don't know what it is, but I'll find a way.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
what was it about writing before that you loved that really placed you in the position on that bike that made you want to get back to that so much?
I'll answer that with just a little vignette, which is about 3 weeks after the trauma center. My brother showed up. He's an MD, and he came to my hospital bedroom, and he said, I don't worry that you'll heal. Your bones will heal. I've seen you crash hundreds of times in bike races, and I'm not worried about that. He said, what I worry about is that your persona of a champion will never be the same. And Mairin, the tears just poured out of me
Yeah.
because I think deep down I had a fear that he might be right, that I could never regain that persona of a champion that I lived inside of. And I think that was the reset that I went through, to answer your question, as how could I possibly have me back, right?
Yeah.
And I think people go through this. I'm not alone in this. And this is why I ultimately wrote the book, because as I began to be able to share the story, people said, you need to write this. You need to tell people this story so that they can consume it on their own. And that reset was very important for me because the different parts of my life leaned in to help me recover. And honestly, everybody in my life believed in me when I had lost hope. And so that was a profoundly spiritual experience for me, to be right at the edge of despair. And yet people were showing up and saying, come on, you can do this. And we believe in you and we're grateful for you. And look at all that we've been through together. And so there was this tremendous sense of shared experience, and people were not afraid of me in my new state. And I think that made all the difference.
It's said that when crisis hits, it reveals a lot about somebody. And For people to show up for you like that obviously says a lot. What do you think it revealed about you?
Well, first, I think I had what I call emotional bank accounts.
Mm,
Thank you for that question.
yeah.
uh, I didn't realize it before, but it came to me that I had these 7 parts of my life that I had paid it forward, and
Mm,
I had made deposits unwittingly just by living my life the way that I do. And those deep relationships and characteristics really showed up for me,
mhm,
including a life of learning. I had
mhm,
always pursued learning as a primary discipline, reading every day, experiencing everything, exploring with people, exploring the world. Um, and that came back to me as a method for recovery
mm,
among these other methods. So I would
mhm.
say that the reflection that the community showed back to me of myself is what allowed me to pursue and prevail.
I want to shift a little bit because you speak often of the daily deposits, like you just did, and how they go into our emotional reserves. What are the habits or what are the environments that quietly drain us in a way from the quality of our emotions over time?
Well, and as you know, I focus on emotional bank accounts.
Mhm,
I think we have other bank accounts that are easier, more material, um, um, but even our financial bank accounts have an emotional aspect
mhm,
that's very real and important. Maybe it's our most emotional asset, and that is a sense of peace that we gain from earning and
mm,
saving and investing.
mhm.
And so I speak about that in my book. Um, and I would say that uh, rephrase your question for me one more time, just to.
What is hmm, what quietly drains us emotionally over time? What are some of those habits or things that, from your perspective now, having been through that, what does that do to someone?
Yeah, I think I'll phrase it in a positive way, because for me,
Yeah,
this is my experience. And so we can have, like looking through a slide, we see the A positive, right?
real.
Um, but I think the things that lift us up are also things that when we neglect them, they drain us.
Mm,
And so, I start with dreams because I believe that dreams are the essence of us. It's
mm,
what gets us out of bed each day. Without a dream, we never can set goals. And without goals, we cannot go out and perspire and make those goals happen. And so I think when we let go of our dreams, when we fail to have um, really carefully articulated dreams, um,
mhm,
dreams are not ethereal, unrealistic things that just sort of happen.
mm,
Um, Even our sleeping version of waking, that part of our life where we sleep,
mhm,
um, we're blessed with dreams because our mind continues to go.
mm,
And in that rest phase, we get profound clarity on things that sometimes we're too confused or busy to work on during the day. So I think dreams are really a critical aspect. And that if we fail to have dreams and carefully articulate the dreams, that is a drain, uh,
yeah.
and it forces us to start behind the 8 ball. But if we are bold, and I think we all can afford to be bold, and dream. What are your goals? What do
Mm,
you dream about? Aspire maybe is a better word, than dream.
yeah.
And aspiration allows us to then have affirmation and then perspiration.
Mm.
So we have those three aspects of dreams.
Talk to me about your wellness or your emotional wellness framework that you refer to. Tell us a little
Sure.
bit about that.
Different parts of my life. Maybe you can see this if I hold it up. Uh,
Yes.
Is that possible to see that?
I
Okay,
see
so
health and learning.
everything begins with your dreams, and then
Mhm.
then we go to your health and your life of learning, your life of earning, your capacity to give back, your love relationships, and your connection to the divine, which is spirit.
Mm,
So this is the emotional wealth framework, um, and it allows us to be sort of more focused in each of those aspects of our life. And those were the parts of my life that gradually, like there was some grand design, showed up
mhm,
for me when I did not believe in me, when I was
mm,
broken physically
mhm,
and emotionally. And I realized that I had made deposits into these emotional bank accounts, those 7 accounts. I had dreams. I had a robust health, maybe the healthiest I'd ever been. Um, I had always had a life of learning. I had a solid history of earning and saving and investing. And
mhm.
so I had a dividend aspect that I think we can apply to all of these, but I had it in assets also. That allowed me to survive this huge setback without being broken
Mm,
financially. But there were some tough spots, and
mm,
so that's where my family and my community leaned in and helped me to then realize the assets that I truly had. Um,
mhm,
and of course, giving back allows us two benefits from giving back. First of all, is the extraordinary sense of community that we gain from giving back. And
yeah.
secondly, that our heart grows when we give. And,
Mhm,
it seems sort of counterintuitive that
mhm,
you kind of let your heart open to someone and you might be drained by that. But the reality is that your heart grows. You get so much from that relationship of giving and helping somebody else in their path. So these things just unfolded as time went along. And I realized that I had these emotional bank accounts that I could turn to. My faith community
mhm,
lifted me up and was extraordinary. The kind of um, community that was always there but never needed to activate.
mm,
I was always the one tying a knot in a prayer quilt and saying a prayer and putting it in a box and sending it to wherever that person was who needed a prayer quilt. And suddenly, in my rehab hospital, I received a box. It was me that was receiving a box this time. I never thought that would happen. I was always the strong one, and here I
mhm,
was. I didn't have my glasses. I didn't have, any resources except my insurance to allow me to stay in that hospital, and suddenly I had a prayer quote from my church
mm,
and 50 get well cards. It was just, sort of mind bending that, they found me. Someone found out that I had been hit by a car. I had
mm,
not reached out to anyone, but
mhm,
the network self-activated,
mhm,
and, I discovered that, I was in Ohio when I got hit by the car. Um, my church is in Virginia,
wow, okay.
and I had communications from as far as Atlanta and the Democratic Republic of Congo and San Francisco and, the world community that I'm a part of. Uh,
Those miles traveled.
right.
Yeah.
So, I think there was a profound sense of presence, that came out of that. So heartwarming,
Mhm.
and healing.
Can I ask you a question? If someone is, let's talk in terms of bank accounts and if someone is in a deficit of their own and they're feeling emotionally exhausted, overwhelmed, how does one gain deposits when their accounts are low?
Right.
What would you suggest?
I don't think all accounts are equal. And so you're pointing out something that's really a great reference point in all of this. Sometimes we might feel like our spiritual connection is thin.
Mhm.
We're just not as in tune with it, for example, as we would like to be, or that we have a relationship that's gone sideways that is for some reason it's discord instead of accord.
Mm.
And so I think we can tune into those things just like tuning in a station on a radio, where it's fuzzy for a bit until you slightly dial the dial until the communication becomes crystal clear.
Yeah.
And this is a way for us to then retune and rebalance our accounts. All accounts don't need to be equal, but we need to be equally aware.
Mm.
And so that's
Is there one that has more value to you, or is more important to you in this level of when trying to keep your accounts in the positive?
I think looking and framing in terms of root, realign, and rise,
Yeah.
which for me, the real root of my core being
Yeah.
comes from my aspirations, comes from dreams.
Mm.
And I think when we get really in touch with our aspirations, that it motivates everything
Mhm. Mhm.
from there. And so when we are careful about that and bold,
Mhm.
I think we need to be bold when we're aspiring for things. But I would say
Mhm.
that's the number one aspect. When I first begrudgingly, people said you should write a book about this because your story is compelling. It'll inspire people. And I said, no, I don't want to write a book because I didn't want the responsibility of having a book out there, that I might have to promote it and defend it or whatever. And
Right.
so, and I've been a lifelong writer and I've written other books, but it was this that it was kind of
Mhm.
really caused me to pause. And so I came up with 6 emotional bank accounts and I sent them off to my mom. And I said, I think this is why I survived. I think this is
Mm.
the reason. And she said, yeah, this is great, but you're missing one. The classic. My mom was always pushing me to do better.
Yeah.
And she said, you're missing dreams.
Mm.
And I thought that dreams was going to go last. And the more I considered that, I realized that dreams are not just first, they are central to everything.
Mm. Interesting. Talk to me. You have another book coming too, don't you?
I do. I have a next book in this series. This is a
Okay.
3-book series. The second book is called Reframe.
Right.
I do have a cover. I have a couple of covers to choose from at this point, but I can't show those yet. But this book is about gaining your 2 superpowers, which are willpower and core power. And willpower is self-talk. It's the story that you tell yourself. And it's really critically important how we phrase uh, setbacks and turn
Mm.
them into opportunities. So that's willpower.
Okay.
Core power is self-care. And the thing that especially those of us who are entrepreneurs or coaches to entrepreneurs
Mhm.
um, frequently forget that sleep is an important part of work.
Yes. That's that dreaming part that's necessary.
Right. And you get superb benefits that come from a good alignment on sleep. And those who chronically shortchange sleep uh, fundamentally shortchange their outcomes.
Mm.
But those who include sleep, one of the guy who's writing the foreword for my next book is a 4-time Olympic rowing coach. And he said to me, um, sleep is the new athletic steroid.
Mm.
And I had to think for a moment about what that could mean. And what he said was, I said, can you kind of tease that out for me? And he said, the teams that treat sleep like it's an important part of the workout are the ones who are winning.
Mm.
And the same thing goes for corporate teams and startup teams and
Mhm.
teams that are dedicated to doing anything. If you don't rest and relax and include support and nutrition, and meditation and prayer. Those are the things that actually allow the rest of the work to be of value.
Hmm.
But we
Mhm.
we do not grow stronger during the work cycle. And that's the big misalignment that most people have, is that they think if I'll just work harder, I'll get stronger or I'll get
Yeah.
better or whatever it is that I'll do. And the ones who say, I will work hard and I will rest, those are the ones who are rewarded with real advancement, with real insight, with achievements. And so, fundamentally, I believe that without that rest and support aspect in the cycle, and this is what I call core power.
Mhm.
There are actually 6 elements of core power, and the entire structure of willpower and core power is a rethinking of the old 80-20 principle, that 20% of your revenue comes from, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients or your customers, uh, and that we have some kind of a work-life balance. And that calls up a huge trade-off where you're sitting at one end of the seesaw or another.
Mhm.
And I believe that we have the proper way to describe the optimal life is a work-life integration, because work is required for most of us,
Mhm.
and life is that sort of taste of joy that we get when somehow we're not at work.
Mhm.
And I believe that a work-life integration is where the really good stuff is. So I rethink the 80-20 and work-life balance to a new way of thinking.
Mm. It's interesting, your books, you said you have 2 or 3 in total?
The third book is called Durability.
Mhm.
And in bicycle racing, we have a concept that's emerged over the last 4 or 5 years. It
Mhm.
used to be either watts or speed or, some combination of these things that resulted in winning. And now we have the concept of durability, which is how, after 6 hours of racing, do you summon up the ability to do the final climb
Mm.
or sprint or whatever it is that gets you to
Mhm.
the finish? And durability in the emotional wealth framework is, how do we sustain these things?
Mhm.
Because I think there's a real curiosity about, um, okay, so we have a framework that has these fundamental 7 elements, and now we have 2 superpowers that really are the driver of the best life.
Mhm.
If we get that figured out and get it right, how do we sustain all of this? So that's the third book in this series.
What I love about it is as I was listening to you talk about each book, each one seems like it's the phase of my root realign and rise into the next. So I guess the next question begs for somebody who is going into that rise or who has emotionally deposited into the bank account, who is getting sleep and who is taking that emotional balance of self care and so forth. How would you suggest somebody on this side who is trying to do all of that? What's the next step in rising?
I think it's the beauty, if you think for a moment in terms of financial investment, right?
Mhm.
Say you have a savings account, or you have investments in a stock or a bond, and at some point you get a dividend,
Mm,
right? And I think that that's the way life is structured,
yeah.
is that um, the the durability aspect here, the sustainability element, where we rise, is where we move from just the ABCs of money, which is you have enough assets that you can pay your bills for 6 months. You have um, um, a next phase, A and B and C, and then you get a D, which
Mm,
is dividends. And the
mhm,
dividends are where um, a long-term asset value of all that you do, all that you dream for, all that you've learned, all that you've given, all of these things get into a multiplier aspect.
Mm.
And I think that's where we rise.
Mhm. I like it. For in order to wrap up here, I want to make sure for those that are listening, what is one practical thing that they can do this week to deposit into that emotional wellness bank for their own resilience and capacity?
Sure. Uh, when I was running big sales teams, I used to tell the guys and men and women, um, find good weather and call it. Because we were calling all over North America, and we had 52 agents, and we would call on them to help them structure deals. And so I would tell my teams to find good weather and call it, because you usually in a 4 or 5 state territory that you had responsibility and you had several agents. And so we structured our mindset around calling a friend, calling a good client, uh, always starting up, right?
Mhm.
If with an uplift. And sometimes it was just a matter of finding where the sun was shining on the map, and make a few calls in that area, and you'll find that people have a sunny disposition that goes with the good weather.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one great way that we can get a deposit. And the other way is to just engage with each of these 7 bank accounts. Is to look at them, whether it's the love side of your relationships, where maybe you need a realignment, or you need to rekindle a friendship, or make an apology. That all of those things are deposits into that emotional bank account.
Mm.
So in the process of doing those things, um, both people benefit.
Thank you, JC. I appreciate everything that you've shared and said today. You've traveled a lot of miles, and I'm glad that you found your way onto my show. I think that there will be a lot of people who will feel grateful that you've deposited into their bank accounts today. Um, if they want to reach out and know more about your antidote or your other books, your emotional wealth, and all the other upcoming projects, where can they find you?
AntidoteTheBook.com. This is the easy place to see it. Antidote the book. I think it's here at the bottom. Here we go. AntidoteTheBook.com. Everything is in there. You can hit contact.
Okay.
You can subscribe for free. And I do very simple consulting, 30 minutes a month, sometimes all you need. But that's included for a small fee of $50. So, and I love doing those sessions.
Thank you, JC, for being here. I really, really appreciate your time. Before we wrap, if you're navigating pressure or transition, you're burning out, or you have leadership fatigue, I share deeper leadership insight each week through my own newsletter. It's where I break down how to apply these conversations into real life, especially when life maybe feels demanding, uncertain, or overwhelming. And you can find that in the show notes. But before we wrap, I want to remind you that you don't have to be whole to lead. You don't have to be whole enough. Leadership doesn't begin once everything is resolved. It begins when you root yourself in truth right here, right now. You realign with what matters and you choose to rise with responsibility right where you are. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.